The Buddha has a powerful teaching, and it's that all beings love life, all beings fear death.
Mhm.
Therefore, one should not kill nor cause to kill.
Hello, friends, and welcome to episode 126 of Did You Bring the Hummus podcast. I'm Kimberly, your host, and I am super excited to be here with you today. Did You Bring the Hummus is a podcast for all things vegan. Before we get started, I have one very important question for you. Did you bring the hummus? Today, I am joined by Forrest Tierce, U.S. Project Director of Dharma Voices for Animals. In this role, Forrest works to raise awareness of the connection between the ecological crisis caused by animal farming and Buddhist ethics, helping individuals and communities align their food choices with sustainability and compassion for all beings. Forrest shares a lot of wisdom in this episode. You will definitely walk away with an understanding of just how well Buddhism and veganism align. Forrest's powerful experience that led to his going vegan 18 years ago, a different take on my question about hummus, and more. Hey, Forrest, welcome. I'm so glad you're here with me tonight.
Thank you so much, Kimberly, for having me. I'm really grateful to be here. Thank you for giving me the opportunity.
Of course. Thank you for joining me. I'm so excited to chat with you and to learn all about the good things that you're doing in the world. But before we get to that piece, although not like being vegan isn't doing something amazing and good for the world every moment of the day, but why don't you share with us your vegan journey?
Right on. Yeah. Yeah. I agree. Being vegan is amazing. I think most of the listeners are probably on board with that. If they're new or just interested, it's awesome. Welcome. My vegan journey was kind of interesting as far as like where I started. I grew up in Texas in a very much hunting barbecue culture, and I grew up uh, eating tons of animal products and animal flesh, and was a hunter for a little while, went deer hunting, duck hunting, worked at a barbecue house. I mean, I made fun of my vegetarian sister at one point. Poor girl. And I was the obnoxious meat eater for a long time. And let's see, in my mid 20s, I moved to California and started to seek like a spiritual path because I was struggling with just hitting like emotional bottoms and stuff like that. So I started seeking like a spiritual path, and a friend of mine gave me a book from the Dalai Lama, and I was like, oh, I couldn't do that. I think you have to be vegan, or I didn't even know what vegan was. I don't think at the time. I just thought I couldn't do that. But it was an interesting experience. I was going to a meditation group, and the guy there, it was called Agape. It's in Los Angeles. Reverend Michael Bernard Beckwith. He's amazing. He's a beautiful spiritual teacher, and he was talking about eat the light. You don't want to eat the dark, and what does that mean? And he would invite everyone to go eat vegan food after the event. And another guy, a friend of mine in Los Angeles, was this tatted out guy from London who was all about animals. And I told him I was an environmentalist, and he called me a phony. He said,
Yeah.
"No, you're not a phony. You eat meat." And I said, "Well, I just eat mostly chicken." And he's like, "They have it the worst, dude." But and then I kind of had those things rattling around my head, and I was eating a burger and looking at my doggy, Frankie, little French bulldog. He was sleeping on the floor, and I was eating an animal, looking at an animal that I loved, and realized I'm an animal and I love this animal. And it was like a weird kind of lightning bolt feeling.
Mm.
And then maybe a week later, all of this was kind of percolating. I was back at the meditation group, and I had just eaten a can of tuna, which is just disgusting to me to think of now. But that's one thing I would do back after a workout. I would just chow down a can of tuna. And I was sitting in meditation with a couple hundred people at Reverend Michael's Center. And I grew up fishing also. And all of a sudden I started to have this feeling that if you've ever gone fishing and you get a fish hooked, they fight, and they're struggling. And there's this this torque, and all of a sudden I was having like this torque in my stomach. Felt like there was a live fish in my stomach, and I was sitting there with tears coming down my eyes, down my cheeks. And I just came back from that, and I walked in and I told my wife, I'm going to be vegan. I had never said the word vegan, I don't think, maybe in my life. I had stopped eating mammals for a couple years after I saw Babe, which was interesting. I just ate more chicken and turkey. But I'd eaten a steak 3 days before the fish experience in my stomach. So I went from like, not even registering or whatever animal suffering to like all of a sudden the things my friend had said and the thoughts I'd had about my dog and everything all came together with this experience of a fish trying to get off a fishing line experience. And that was it. I came home and I started reading labels, and my wife watched me for a week to make sure I didn't drop dead. And after I survived the first week of veganism, she's like, I'm going to be vegan too. So we just had our 18th vegan anniversary.
Nice. Congratulations.
September. Yeah. So I can't believe it. It's been amazing. I'm turning 53 in a couple days. My wife and I just lifted weights together this morning and went on a 30-minute run through the neighborhood and around, and I feel great. I mean, my body is better than it's ever been in my life. I was a personal trainer for 15 years, so I'm really into exercise and everything. And so I feel amazing. And I'll tell you this one last thing about turning vegan. I was a competitive mountain bike racer at the time. This was like 2007. And I was in the tail end of my racing season. It was September when I had this experience, and I'm like, I'm going to be vegan, but it's going to suck because it's going to ruin the rest of my racing season. I have some of my biggest cross country mountain bike races coming up. So cross country are the guys that go up and down the mountain. So I was like, I got a couple big races left, and I'm going to ruin my season if I go vegan, but I have to do this because I can't eat animals anymore. And I don't care if I'm slow. I'm just going to, whatever, I'm going to do the right thing. So I had been racing in the Santa Monica Mountains because I lived in LA at the time, in Mar Vista, Venice Beach area. And I had gone up and done all of the trails there for years. I had all of my times recorded up Sullivan Ridge, up Backbone, and Will Rogers, up all of these epic climbs there. And within 1 month of going vegan, I had beaten all of my best records up all of these climbs, up Sullivan Ridge, Sullivan Canyon, every record I had set. Some of them I hadn't been able to beat them for 2 years. I beat all of them within a month. And I was like, oh my God, my body is so efficient. I'm like digesting this protein very easily. I'm eating more carbohydrates. My blood doesn't have saturated fat and cholesterol in it. So I'm like flying up the hills, like not even breathing hard at times. It was incredible. So I turned into that typical, hey, everybody, I'm vegan. You should be vegan. And I think I really annoyed a lot of people because, they weren't as excited about it as I was. But yeah, so it was a very, sudden change for me and opposite experience of what I expected. So it was like, and the last thing, and I've had night terrors ever since I was a little kid. And as soon as I stopped ingesting that darkness, my nightmares subsided. I mean, I'll have one every now and then, but like I suffered from like nightmares my whole life.
Wow.
And so I'm a big believer in the spiritual realm, like karmically, when we ingest this animal suffering and when we pay for the violence that happens towards animals like that, we bring that energy into our hearts, our lives, our minds, and it really pollutes us, So that's one of the reasons I like Buddhism so much, is it gives me clear guidance on how to live a life and purify my mind. So that's that was a big answer there. So
that was a great answer. Thank you. I think Carl Lewis also said that his best year running was the year he went vegan.
Yes. And that's so cool to mention that, because I just said I beat my time up Sullivan Ridge and Sullivan Fire Road and West Ridge. So Carl Lewis lived in Brentwood area. I don't know. He probably still does. He has a beautiful house with like the Olympic rings across his gate. And I used to ride past his place, but I saw him up on West Ridge one time. And I was like, hey man, I love watching you run. He's like, oh, thanks, man. He was really cool. So anyway, yeah. He was vegan when he won all of his gold medals.
Yeah.
And that was, he said he was his fastest when he was vegan. So
Yeah. So people who are questioning it, like
You
you
can get
were
all of the
worried.
amino acids from plants. There is nothing you cannot get from plants. And that's
Right.
like, it's very simple, and you can get all of it without the pollutants and the toxins that are in so many of the animal products, and without killing animals and destroying the earth and clogging your arteries with cholesterol. So it just seems so logical. I don't know why everyone's not doing it.
Right? Yeah. I feel that way too. It's like, just look at all of the benefits for
Yeah.
everybody,
Yep.
for you and your own body, for the environment, for other people, the people who work in these places where the animals are murdered, where they are
Yeah.
stuffed and suffering until they
Yeah.
are trucked off to be murdered.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's just and then, we're not eating animals, so they don't even have to be put in that situation. It really is a win for everybody. Well, I guess except for the people who make tons of money off of all of this suffering. And
Yeah, but
that's why
yeah,
it still happens.
all they care about is making money. If the consumer changed and said, "Hey, I want almond milk instead of dairy milk," well, that's why we see almond milk, soy milk,
Mhm.
cashew milk, oat milk, because consumers have said they want other things. Like the corporations will give us what we want. We can't expect them to make the change. We have to make the change ourselves. And that's, I was a park ranger. I'll probably get to talk about that, but I gave a talk about systemic change always happens from the ground up. When individuals take personal responsibility for their own actions, that's when change has always happened. If you look at every social justice movement throughout history, it's been when an individual took responsibility, not when a corporation offered them something different, right? So it's
Right.
like, anyway, yeah, I 100% with you though. It just makes sense, and I mean, we could end world hunger on the crops we graze in the United States alone. We could
Yep.
end world hunger a few times over on the simple subsidies that go to prop up animal agriculture.
Mhm.
It's crazy. The system is so nuts. Like, I feel like what is happening on this planet? Like,
Yeah.
how, it's baffling. You know what I mean? It's
Yeah.
baffling to me. So,
Absolutely. Your story about that moment when you were sitting there in meditation and feeling like there was a fish fighting you from the inside.
mm,
What an incredible way to remind everyone that the animals do fight, and that they're always trying to save their own lives at the end, whether you are out there fishing and they've just been living their life as a fish and they didn't even know that people could be a thing or interact with them, and in those final moments that they are fighting so hard to save their own lives, and that all animals are doing that in their last moments. And it's hard to talk about. The way that you described it, though, I think is a really powerful story that can get people to make that connection. So I just wanted to reiterate that feeling there, and thank you for sharing that and putting it in such a beautiful way that was so powerful, for people
oh,
to
that's
really
awesome.
understand.
Yeah, I appreciate you saying that. I 100% agree with you. Like, I have watched the videos. I have seen what animals go through, and for me, I think it was the right thing to do because now I know. And until you see it, you won't believe it. And I feel like if you see it, there's a chance you can change. If you don't see it, you could never imagine how horrific it actually is. But the Buddha has a powerful teaching, and it's that all beings love life, all beings fear death.
Mhm.
Therefore, one should not kill nor cause to kill.
Yeah.
So it's very clear and very simple. It's also said one should not slay nor cause to slay. So very clear. I see that. I hear that. I'm like, okay, how can anyone not understand what this means?
Yeah,
But all
seems pretty clear.
beings, yeah, all beings do. They fight. They fight as you or I would if we were being
Mhm.
threatened. If someone was coming at me in a night with a knife, I would do what I have to do to try to get away from them. And cows, pigs, chickens, fish, all beings have that same fight or flight response. I mean, that's why they're called sentient.
Right.
They have the nervous system with the brain, eyeballs, so that they can sense fear and they can have fight or flight. And if they have fight or flight, they deserve to live. All beings. So
Yeah.
that's a beautiful thing about being vegan. We don't
Mhm.
we don't have to inflict that pain and that suffering on other beings for the simple taste pleasures of a snack.
Right.
Like, oh my gosh, the other day heard someone say, I'm going to go have a snack. And I knew they were going to eat animals. And I was like,
Oh,
it was a being's life. And to you, it's just a snack. It's like,
yeah.
man, but I was once there. So I try to have compassion, but it's challenging at times.
Yes.
So,
Yeah. And I think the more, there's always something to be learned. I find that I always think I know all of the ways that humans can use and abuse animals. And then I find a new one and I go, oh my goodness, I had no idea. And so we're always learning, and it's always shocking, even no matter how much we know. So I think it gets
yep.
harder, to remember when we were doing that same thing, seeing a full being who's interested in life as simply a snack, and then being around that at this point is so difficult. I find it really hard.
Yes.
Yeah.
When you say be around that, what do you mean? Just like people's attitudes?
Yes, sorry. Yes, to be
Yes.
around
Yeah.
people, and to see them eating animals has become more and more difficult the longer I'm vegan, and to
Oh, for
hear
sure.
the flippant way that people talk about animals or talk about their food, which we don't see as food because it's not. Um, and it does. I find it hard. I try to be sympathetic all the time because the only way to get somebody to be vegan is to not give them like shit in their face all the time. I think very few people actually respond to that level of interaction. So
Yeah.
I try not to, but it's hard.
Yeah. No, I 100% identify. I mean, I just, my wife and I, as I mentioned, celebrated our 18th vegan anniversary, and it's just so hard. We're visiting family in Texas right now because my father just passed away at 83 years of age from congestive heart failure.
Mm.
And I tell people my dad lived to be 83, and they're like, "Oh, that's amazing." But the fact is, my dad had a really bad stroke. It's 15 years ago, and I gave him everything I possibly could give him to help him change and eat more plants. And my dad is a poultry geneticist. My dad was part of the movement in factory farming to get thousands of birds inside a small space.
Oh wow.
And interestingly, side note, when I told my dad 18 years ago I was going to be vegan, my dad, who works in animal ag, who's a chicken guy, he said that I told him completely understand that, Forrest, and anyone who knows what happens with animal agriculture wouldn't support it. And I was shocked that he said that because he continued to support it. But after I
Yeah.
told him I wasn't going to, but I gave my dad all of the scientific data and explained to him all of the nutrition science, and he could not change. And my dad died of congestive heart failure. He'd had, my God, different types of cancer and had a kidney removed and bladder tumors, but he had clogged arteries the last 20 years of his life and had a really poor quality of life. And he lived to be 83, but he was, taking 10 pills a day to keep the blood thin and the cholesterol down, and wouldn't listen to me. I wanted him to
Mhm.
watch the Blue Zones about the people that live to be 100 and healthy, and he's not interested, and it's just heartbreaking to love people that are so stubborn and that carnist mentality. But it does help me to look at it like, it's an addiction. Like,
Yeah.
I was once addicted to animal products, and people are addicted to it. They're addicted to the cow, they're addicted to the pig, they're addicted to the chicken, the flavors, the textures, the traditions. All of that goes into like denial and delusion that blocks people from being able to just use logic.
Yeah.
And, my grandparents, my great grandparents, my grandparents, my dad, my mom, they all have heart disease
Hmm.
and they don't want to change. And I'm sitting here telling them about my LDL cholesterol, which is incredibly amazing low, and what they could do. And they're just not interested. And it's so hard. And I speak with other people. I met a gal the other day, Hope. She's vegan 36 years, and none of her family wants to hear about it. And they're all suffering from health issues. So it's pretty amazing the denial and the delusion that goes into carnism. It's a
Hmm.
really powerful way of thinking that's very sad.
It
So
is. Yeah. And they can see what is happening, but somehow we've all been, well, not us because we're outside of it now that we're vegan and we understand how food works in our bodies. They they see everyone who eats the way they do suffering from all the things that they are, and I'm using like they as in general, not speaking about your family that you just mentioned, or
Yes.
because my family has a lot of that too. And so everybody like, oh, this person, oh, they've got cancer, or they got cancer again, oh yeah, that friend has got heart disease, and this one just had a heart attack. And it's like, oh well, this is just what happens when humans get older, and
Yes.
there's nothing we can do about this. And it's like,
Yeah.
you don't see you're all eating exactly the same way. And nobody goes, I wonder if it's what we're eating.
I know. Yeah. There was a post I saw a couple years ago. There was a guy who was the president of the American College of Cardiology. I think that's what it was called. Kim, I'm blanking on his name, but it was a great quote. He said, there's two types of cardiologists, vegans and those who haven't read the studies.
Kim
And,
Kim
and
Williams?
yes, that's
Yes.
it. Yes.
Yes.
And he said there's the number one killer in the United States is heart disease. The number one killer of cardiologists, heart doctors in the United States is heart disease. They're literally offering you palliative care. If they're not challenging you to change your lifestyle, they're
Mhm.
offering you hospice when they give you statins. And my family, they're taking statins. Everybody's on a statin. It's
Yeah.
insane. It's just like, oh, this is what you do that gives you neurological disorders and vertigo and weakness in the last thing you need when you're 80 is vertigo and dizziness and weak muscles, and
Right.
that's what you get with statins. So it's like, oh my God, connect the dots, but it's not
Mhm.
not happening, but whatever, at least. And I don't know how I woke up. I mean, like I said, I grew up hunting, and I look back and I think a lot of that was part of my evolution because I loved animals as a kid. I had to be
Mhm.
tricked into eating a hamburger when I was like in fifth grade because I didn't want to eat a cow. But then, boy, I went all in, and it was all into it, and part of the culture was raised in, and then, but somehow I just changed. I woke up and I didn't, I'm as shocked as anybody was that I went vegan, and I don't think people that knew me back then would ever thought that that would be the case, but.
Mhm.
There's a great guy on Instagram, Hunter. I think his tag is Hunter. I'm not on Instagram often, but I saw him on there recently, and he's a big dude, power lifter, country guy, wears camouflage, and he talks about how he was brainwashed as a kid because he loved animals, but he was brainwashed as a kid and grew up hunting, and now he's a vegan and he's going to fight everything he can do for the animals. So it's
Mm.
it's great to see people that you wouldn't expect.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, nobody believed that I was going to be vegetarian. No, I'm vegetarian first. Nobody was going
Yeah.
to believe that I was going to be vegetarian for more than a day or two because I didn't like vegetables and I didn't know how to cook. And so they were
Yeah.
like, all right, good luck. Let us
Yeah.
know when you're back and eating what we all eat. And here we are, 24
Yep.
years later, still haven't
Oh my
eaten.
gosh, you've been vegan 24 years?
I went vegetarian 24 years ago, but I've been vegan for 10.
Oh my God, awesome. Good for you.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah. So one of the things that you mentioned a few times, Forrest, is Buddhism. How did you come? Were you raised as Buddhist? How did you come to follow the noble path? That's what it's called, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I love talking about Buddhism. So yeah, I'm here on behalf of Dharma Voices for Animals to talk about Buddhism and what I do, and that wrap it all up together. Dharma Voices for Animals is a global animal advocacy organization. We see the teachings of the Buddha, and we hear them very clearly, and we can see when the Buddha says we must be compassionate to all beings, we believe that extends to animals. So Dharma Voices for Animals is a Buddhist organization that is very proud to be vegan and very happy to be recognizing all beings deserve life. And so we have outreach programs in Sri Lanka, Vietnam, and Thailand. And I'm the U.S. project director for Dharma Voices for Animals. And I'm launching a project called the Sustainable Sangha Collective. And what I'm trying to do is just raise a community or create a community of like-minded individuals and recognizing Buddhist centers that are offering plant-based foods, because you might think that they would be, but there's not as many as you would expect. There's some fully vegan Buddhist teachers and some fully vegan Buddhist centers. A lot of them are still serving animal flesh, animal secretions. So we're trying to raise awareness around compassion for all beings and also tie that into the environmental crisis and raise awareness around that. So I'll talk about this more at the end, but we are a nonprofit, and I'll mention some ways you can support us as being like a monthly donor or anything like that. So definitely looking for help in what we do with DVA. And there's a lot to talk about there, but yeah, my experience was I grew up in the Bible Belt. I had no experience to Buddhism. I had never heard of meditation or anything like that until I arrived in California. And this, just so you kind of get a gist, when I moved to California, I was 98. I was 26, 27. And I said, I'm never going to do yoga and I'm never going to eat sushi. Those are my two vows. Moving from the Texas, I moved to California after graduating from University of Oklahoma, and never going to do yoga and I'm never going to eat sushi. And then, oh my God, like, okay, I don't eat sushi because it's a fish, and I do yoga every day now. That's like a way of life for me. But anyway, so I got to California, and as I said, I was going through some tough times, and I found Buddhism, and I fell in love with it. I think I'm kind of like an OCD, very much a busy brain, and I love lists, and I love the simplicity that I find in Buddhism with the lists and the numbers of things to do. It just clicks for me, and it makes sense. And there's some theories that the Buddha had all of these traits of someone who could be on the autism spectrum, because he just saw things differently than his peers. He never enjoyed being in crowds. He loved sitting alone in silence. And I'm like, I identify with all of these things. And there's an incredible story of the Buddha they were at a large festival, and the Buddha was, I think, 3, maybe 5 years old, very, very little child. And they could see he was distressed. So they went over, they found a little spot under a tree, and they laid down a blanket, and they let him sit there. Everyone went to the festival, and the Buddha started to meditate. This is as a young child, and he was watching an ox toil as he pulled a plow through the soil. And he found deep compassion for the ox as he was being whipped, and he was pulling this heavy plow. And he watched the farmer as he was struggling to guide the plow, and found compassion for him. Then he started to think about all of the tiny worms whose homes were being destroyed. And he sat there under this rose apple tree with compassion for the worms and the animal and the farmer and the soil, and had this deep spiritual experience as a young child. And like, it's such a beautiful story. And I love that he was able to connect with that. And for me, in Buddhism, we have the five precepts, and the five precepts are kind of what you do as the beginning before you start the path. And then you have the Four Noble Truths, and it just helps you grasp the concept of happiness and suffering. And then there's the Eightfold Path. And if you follow this path and you do these things as suggested, you will find peace. And it's very simple and very clear and very easy to follow. And I shouldn't say easy, to simple, but not easy. And so I was not raised in anywhere even near Buddhism, but I fell in love with it when I found it. And I've been studying it, I guess, for 21 years now, something like that. So on my daily practices, I like to read the precepts. The five precepts are no killing, no stealing, no sexual misconduct, no lying, and no intoxicants. I'll read the precepts in the morning, and then I'll listen to a teaching, and then I like to just sit and breathe and practice metta meditation, which is a really beautiful form of meditation. And then sometimes I just sit and breathe and count my breaths and count to 10, and then try to restart and count to 10 and restart. And it's just a really simple recipe for happiness. And many people often misunderstand Buddhism as all about suffering. And the Buddha taught dukkha. What that means is there's this uneasiness that follows us through life. Even when things are good, there's this weird uneasiness that we can't often quite grasp. And it just is there. And it's part of the human condition of like, I need more. I need more money. I need more power. I need more of everything. I need more sensual pleasures and taste and all. And the Buddha taught that craving is what leads to suffering. And that little uneasiness can be solved by living a simple life in harmony with the Dharma, by following the precepts and having a loving heart and learning how to meditate. You can find peace, and peace does not come from perfect conditions. Peace comes from a calm mind, and a calm mind can be found through this path. And even when chaos happens, you can have peace. You can have inner peace if you've trained your mind. And so that's what I love as a guy that likes to work out, and bike racer, all that kind of stuff. I think about training my mind each day to be geared towards love, to be geared towards compassion, to send metta out. And when I do those things, it's really amazing. Life is beautiful and I feel amazing. And I'm walking down the beach with my dogs and my wife, and I'm looking at the sun and the sky, and I'm saying hi to people. And they're like, why is this guy so happy? And I'm just loving life. You know what I mean? It's amazing. It's amazing. It's an amazing way to live, So.
Yeah, that sounds incredible. I hope that everyone has the opportunity to feel that way. How wonderful that you have found this and that it's brought you so much peace. And I, knowing what little that I know about Buddhism, and then talking with you in our pre-chat, the pre-podcast chat, and then even just a little bit now, it does seem so clear that Buddhism, like everybody should be vegan, should find their way to veganism. And it made me think about two things. My favorite, I always say he's my favorite Buddhist monk because I don't really know many of them, but Ajahn Brahm, who's out of the Western Australia, he's a Theravada. Is that the right word?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. But he's in Western Australia, and he is like one of the leaders of a monastery there. And he's originally from the UK, and he had been studying he's like a PhD in like chemistry or something very impressive. And he just could have been like a fancy scientist with the shitload of money and doing that whole life. And that just wasn't it for him. And he'd been a vegetarian because he believed that he shouldn't eat animals. And then he got into Buddhism and then became a monk. And he is in his monastery. They eat whatever food is given to them. So
yes,
he's not vegetarian anymore because he eats whatever's presented to him. And I thought, I wonder if as the leader of this group, if you couldn't have a little poll and maybe have a request out there for people to not bring animal products.
Yes.
And then the other... go ahead.
Well, you could wrap up that thought if you want, then I could jump in and share.
No, go ahead. Yeah.
Well, yeah. So it's interesting. And this is the age-old dilemma that we have in Buddhism around some of the earliest conversations around should monks eat meat. And my favorite, I have a bunch of teachers I love, but I really love Thich Nhat Hanh. And he is just amazing with his clarity and his simplicity. And Thich Nhat Hanh has a YouTube video. You can just look it up. Thich Nhat Hanh vegan. And he's asked if being vegetarian is enough. And he says, no, be vegan, because with being vegetarian, you're still eating the flesh. It's just in the form of milk. And I've heard teachers say that, milk is liquid meat. And with meat, you kill the animal and then steal their flesh. With dairy, you steal the flesh and then kill the animal. So it's the same thing. It's just in a different order. But, Thich Nhat Hanh, he's a great teaching. And he has a book that's really powerful. It's called Old Path, White Clouds. And it's all about the beginnings of the Buddha's teachings. And if you wanted to be a monk in the early days, you needed to follow 14 or more precepts, but you didn't have to be a monk. The Buddha said Buddhism can be used by anyone. Householders are welcome to practice it, but you need to follow the 5 precepts. So that was kind of a minimum moral requirement, was to practice the 5 precepts. And there was a question that was asked to the Buddha about, should we tell the people that we don't want them to serve us animals? This is 2,500 years ago, right?
Mm-hmm.
So back then, they weren't eating meat 3 times a day, and they were milking a cow. They weren't, re-impregnating the cow. The cow probably had excess milk. It was a much, much different, not a modern animal agriculture environment. So these arguments don't hold weight now. But the Buddha said, what we hope is that when we go to a new area, people may offer us animal flesh, but once they know we practice the precepts, they won't offer us animal flesh. Now, the crazy thing is, so many Buddhists just were raised in a world of speciesism. They were raised eating animals. So they don't stand up and have a conversation around it. I think partly because they crave the flavors, and they justify, people are just giving this to me as a reason just to eat it. And it does not make any sense that a monk living in a monastery couldn't say, hey, we appreciate your donations. We like to practice the precepts. Please bring us products and food that is free of animal products. I mean, people are going to cook you food. If they know what you like, they'll cook you what you like. It's just, it's really sad. And it's a common problem. And, I've spent time in many different Buddhist sanghas and had difficult, painful conversations with people I respected around eating animals. And it's pretty similar to the same conversations I've had on the street when I've done street activism with different animal advocacy organizations like Anonymous for the Voiceless. A Buddhist will give you the same objections that somebody who's never heard of Buddha would give you. Well, this is just what I do. This is, the animals don't feel pain. Whatever bizarre ideas you have, Buddhists have those same ideas, which is really sad, because we're sitting here practicing compassion for all beings, all sentient beings. I mean, it's even described in Buddhism. You practice them for sentient beings, and we know animals are sentient. And yet Buddhists still somehow rationalize and justify it. So, but I do feel like if you are practicing the path of compassion and you're practicing the Dharma, this can awaken in you very easily, because it's already there. You just have been lied to. We've all been brainwashed as kids to think animals are food. And with a little clarity and with a little love and a little patience, people can see the truth, and they can see that animals suffer and that animals don't need to suffer. And in 2025, almost 2026, with everything we know about what's happening with the earth and with our health and with the animals, it's like easier than ever to go vegan, and there's no logical argument against it. I've seen some of these activists say there's no logical argument against veganism, and there's not. There's emotional arguments and irrational arguments, but there's no logical argument against veganism. So,
right. Yeah. I recently had a conversation with the philosopher Matthew Haltman, and he said, the moral baseline is veganism. There is no moral argument for anything else. So just like you were saying, you can say, the emotional piece, your tradition, whatever these other things are, but the moral baseline of humanity is veganism.
That's amazing. I love it. Absolutely.
Yeah.
How can I mean, what's that? There's a young couple that does, I can't remember what their YouTube channel is, but being vegan is the least you can do. It's not a major deal. It's the least. You should be doing that plus more, and that's what we try to do. So
yeah. Go ahead.
And stuff. So anyway, go ahead.
Yeah. Just one other thing I wanted to chat about quickly before we get back to Dharma Voices for Animals. That in the documentary Christspiracy that came out earlier this year, and you may already know about this if you've seen it. There's
I have, yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry, what was that?
I did see it. Yeah, okay. It was really powerful.
Yeah, it was. And there's a clip, and I found it on YouTube to refresh my memory to make sure I had it right, where the documentarian is talking to a Buddhist and talking about those two of the precepts that you mentioned. They bring up not killing and not stealing. And so the Buddhist is talking about how, all the animals and other people in the world are relatives that you've had in past lives. So it doesn't matter who they are. At some point, you have been connected to this being in another way, in another life. And so to eat an animal's flesh means that you are maybe consuming your mom from a previous life, an aunt, a friend. And so then the documentarian says, well, then, so if you eat this food, like you're eating your family, or you could be eating your family. And the Buddhist says, not could, I am. I would be.
Yeah.
Of course I would be. And then he shares a story about how he was, so then the documentarian then says, so you don't eat animals. And he's like, well, I didn't say that kind of thing. And then he shares a story about how he was invited to a friend's home and they were making pasta with some sausage. And the friend, not considering his Buddhism or thinking about that at all, just said, can you cut the casing off these sausages and put them into the sauce? And so he did. And then he ate this He ate this pasta and this sauce with his friends. And he was very thankful that there were people who wanted to share their food with him. So then the next question is, well, then again, you just ate a family member. And also, isn't this against the precept of, not killing because that animal was killed? And he goes, well, I didn't kill the animal and I didn't pay for the sausage. So I'm kind of like hands off. So then the next question comes, all right, well, let's say somebody steals a car and brings it here to you and then says, here, this car is for you. Would you drive that car? Would you take that car? No, I couldn't take that car. It's been stolen. But you didn't steal it. It's been given to you. And he's like, I don't understand why you're comparing the two. Like,
Oh, God. Oh my gosh.
the mental
Yeah,
gymnastics.
that's okay. So I have two funny things. So I'm sure you've heard of Melanie Joy.
Mm-hmm.
So Melanie Joy has the really awesome stuff. She's so patient and compassionate with meat eaters. It's almost like I can't quite go as far as she can. I still have a little bit of like,
Mm-hmm.
But she talks about carnism, and we all bring different ideology to the table. You could bring vegetarianism to the table, you could bring veganism to the table, or you can bring carnism to the table. All three of them have a belief system that's involved with them. And carnism is based on the belief of speciesism. Some species deserve not to be eaten, and some species deserve to be eaten. And no matter where you are, we don't eat dogs and dolphins here, but if you go over there, they eat dogs. If you go over there, you eat whales. I don't eat whales. They don't eat pigs. We eat pigs. They don't eat cows. We eat. So it's all just cultural programming,
Yeah.
But she has a really great thing about all about that, how when you're talking to a carnist as a vegan, there's a third member in the conversation, and that third member is carnism, and the carnism distorts and twists everything you say so that the carnist cannot hear it. And it's like the vegan would say, hey guys, I'd like to have salad. Do you mind if we don't put cheese on it? And the carnist hears, you're a horrible person for eating cheese. But I've had this experience with Buddhist mental gymnastics, and I actually wrote a little, kind of a little satirical commentary about gold medal Buddhist mental gymnastics, bronze and silver medal Buddhist mental gymnastics. And what Buddhists will do is they'll say, okay, the Buddha taught emptiness. So everything is so interconnected that being so interconnected is what makes the law of karma actually possible. They'll forget that. They'll say everything is interconnected. There's no separation. Therefore, if I eat an animal, I didn't really kill the animal. It's all just energy, right? So that doesn't add up, by the way, right? So that's not what the Buddha taught. But they'll use these advanced, very kind of esoteric way of thinking to rationalize and justify negating the Buddhist teachings on the precepts, negating the Buddhist teachings on love all beings. But they'll use these weird ways around it. And I saw Christspiracy. I thought it was an outstanding documentary. I actually got to go to a premiere screening with the director and the producer. The whole crew was there in
Nice.
Santa Barbara last. I guess it was when it premiered a couple years ago. My wife is cousins with Jamie Logan. She's
Oh,
an awesome
cool.
vegan activist. So she got us in. Basically, we were just, we're not red carpet kind of people, but she got us in. But yeah, so watching that documentary, I was like, this is crazy. Watching this like Buddhist guy sit there and give this beautiful talk about love of all beings, and then, but you eat animals, and he says, I didn't kill the animal.
Yeah.
Like, dude, do you not understand basic, simple supply and demand economics? Like, you are paying for the animal flesh. That money goes to the slaughterhouse, goes to the animal, goes to the farm. It's like you're literally supply and demand. How I do not understand how anyone with a little bit of common sense can't do that. Can't make that mental gymnastics work, but they do it. They do it.
They
And
do.
so it's sad. It's really sad to me. So
It is. It is sad. It is heartbreaking, and it
yeah,
never stops devastating me.
yep,
But what helps is knowing that there are other people like me out in the world, like you, and like organizations like Dharma Voices for Animals. I'm so sorry. So I've got two more questions for you, Forrest. The first one
okay.
is, how can people get involved with Dharma Voices for Animals or support the organization?
Yeah, that's awesome. So, I love Buddhism as a spiritual practice. So, one of the things I always throw out there anytime I can offer it to anyone who might be interested, we have a monthly sangha. It's always the last Sunday of the month where we get together, and it's for animal activists, vegans, people who are curious about veganism, Buddhists, people who are not Buddhists, anyone who wants to just come and be a part of a vegan sangha. It's a great way to connect, and we have different Buddhist teachers lead the meditation. The president of DVA is Bhante Sate, and he is a Sri Lankan monk based in Minnesota now, and he's our president of our organization. And so when we say we're Buddhist, we mean it. We really are. We're all practicing Buddhist at different levels, and but yeah, so we have that as a great way. Our website, Dharma Voices for Animals, has tons of really awesome information about what the Buddha taught, what the Buddha's last meal was, all of these different conversations and resources that people can find to learn more about Buddhism and veganism. And this month we're having our sangha on Thanksgiving Day, because the last Sunday of the month is a couple days after Thanksgiving, and we thought people might be traveling or with family, but why not have a vegan sangha on Thanksgiving Day for anyone who might need a little vegan support before they go meet the family, or any vegans who are alone. So it's at 9 a.m. Pacific, 12 noon Eastern on Thursday, November 27th. You can go to our website and look up events and find it on there real easily and register. And we are a nonprofit, and we operate fully from donations from people like you and your listeners who want to support us and make a difference. And we have really large operations overseas, and we've had great success. Over in Sri Lanka and Thailand and Vietnam, like there are entire monasteries that have gone 100% vegan, and we've done great work to protect different animals and legislation over there. And in the United States, I've been in this position for about 7 months, and I'm launching this sustainable Sangha collective. And we have work to do here in the States. In the United States, most of us are raised with the Western culture. In those other countries, they're raised with, a lot of them are Buddhist already, and raised around, vegan options. It's more of a natural thing there. In the US, it's a totally new thing for us here. So we have work to do with Buddhist centers here. There are Buddhist vegan centers in the US already, and vegan teachers. We're just trying to normalize that conversation and make it more not a fringe conversation, but something that's like mainstream. So that's the goal of the Sustainable Sangha Collective. My email is my name, so it's Forrest, Forrest, @ dharmavoicesforanimals.org, all one word there, no space. I'm sorry, Dharma Voices. So, Dharma Voices for Animals. Yeah. So that's my email. If anyone wants to reach out to me, and let me know of a center that you might know about that's offering plant-based foods. We're just trying to give Buddhist centers a pat on the back, give them recognition for offering plant-based options. In light of everything that's going on, it's going to become more and more common with the environmental crisis that we're facing for plant-based food just to be normal. So
that's amazing. And I'll be sure to include the website for Dharma Voices for Animals and your email address. In the show notes too. So people can just click right in and send off a message or visit the website.
Yeah, we have, you could do a one-time donation or a monthly donation, like a regular monthly thing if you want to do good and help support animals. We have, oh my goodness, I've been talking for a while and I just went blank. We did receive like a top star rating from one of the one of the charity organizations, and we recently received a nice donation from the Best Foundation, and they give to many amazing animal advocacy organizations. So we're a proud recipient from the Best Foundation. So we are doing good work and being recognized by others for doing that. So anyone believes in our mission, please support us.
That's wonderful. Yes, please. However you can donate monthly, one time, whatever you can do, please reach out and support Dharma Voices for Animals. Forrest, this conversation has been wonderful. I've got one more question for you. How does hummus show up in your life?
I love this question. So I love hummus. Hummus showed up last week. When I was at my sister's, she's like, "Hey, you want some hummus?" And I started laughing because it just showed up. And when you mentioned our pre-chat, when we did the pre-chat, I'm like, "Do you mean literally, or is this like some sort of deeper spiritual question? Maybe that's the Buddhist in me." And you're like, "Hey, however you want it to mean." So
exactly.
I think hummus shows up when I need it and where I need it. Like last time, my sister said, "Hey, do you want some hummus?" I was hungry, so it was great. But I was also thinking of like your show, and just kind of like meeting other people that are like-minded. And I feel like, I really believe in this type of Buddhist meditation. It's called metta, where you send love out to all beings and you get love back. So It was funny when you said, how does hummus show up in your life? I kind of felt like, how does love show up in my life? And I believe in that power of attraction. And if I give love out, I get it back. And I guess I'll share this little type of meditation real quick. It's been scientifically shown to improve your mental health and improve overall health. And it's basically called a metta meditation, where you sit and you get centered and you send love to the deepest part of your being. Like if you let go of your ego, your identity, your likes, your dislikes, all of that at the very, very core of your being. And we talked about this earlier, is just the desire to be safe and the desire to be happy and the desire to be protected. All beings have the same feeling. It doesn't matter what being we're talking about, a stray dog, a billionaire in a mansion. Everybody has this really underneath all of the identity, the desire to be free. So with metta, you send yourself love, then you send love to people you love. You send love to people you don't know, people you may just see wandering down the street, don't know their name, whatever. And then you send love to people who you may not like, you might even hate them. And by doing this, you bring yourself, the people you love, the people you don't know, and the people you don't like into a little circle, and you give equal love to all beings. And then you extend that to all beings on the planet, including mammals, birds, fish, reptiles, all beings, insects. May they be happy, may they be safe, may they be healthy, and may they be at peace. So, when you mentioned hummus, I was kind of thinking of metta. Originally, I was like, love comes to me when I give love out. You have to give it away to receive it, and that's a practice I really believe in, and the Buddhist teachings follow that. So that's maybe a little different angle on how does hummus show up, but it's just kind of what popped into my head. So.
I absolutely love that. And, we're recording this episode a little while before it will go out. So it's currently the second week of November, 2025. And On Thursday of this week, I am leading a metta meditation as a fundraiser for a farmed animal sanctuary out in Oregon for the Blue Barn Sanctuary. Yeah. And so it will have those elements that you mentioned. And then because I get an hour to do it, we're going to spend a lot of time with the animals, sending the love to the animals. And so it's going to be incredible. And I love that you mentioned it. So it's just making my heart even more full about this meditation I'll be leading on Thursday. And
where in Oregon is the sanctuary?
They are in Crestwell.
Crestwell, I haven't heard of that. Okay, that's cool.
Me neither.
My wife went on a recent organ transplant, so we're full-time van lifers. So we just transferred our residency to Oregon. We have Oregon plates, and we just moved there. So
cool.
But we just have a mailing address there. The van is our home, so we travel around in our van. So
yeah. I'll send you the info. So if you make your way back to Oregon at any point, you can stop by and visit.
Okay. That would be amazing. Well, thanks so much for having me and letting me jabber on. And I like to talk, as you can tell, but I appreciate you getting me on here. Let me talk about DVA and all the work we do and my own personal experience as well. So I'm very grateful, Kimberly, and thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you too, Forrest. I really appreciate your time, this amazing conversation, and the incredible work that you and DVA are doing. Thank you so much.
Awesome. Thank you.
Welcome back. Sorry about stumbling so hard when talking about my favorite Buddhist monk, Ajahn Brahm. I can't believe his monastery, the Buddhist Society of Western Australia, just went right out of my head and never came back. Forrest really got me thinking about how love shows up in my life and that maybe I could lead with a little bit more of it. He really does embody that. It is a beautiful thing. To follow and support Dharma Voices for Animals, follow them on Instagram at Dharma Voices for Animals, 4, Dharma Voices 4 Animals. On YouTube at Dharma Voices for Animals, 4 spelled out this time. And visit their website, dharmavoicesforanimals.org. You can connect with Forrest by emailing him at forrest@dharmavoicesforanimals.org. Of course, all of these links will be in the show notes, so you'll get the right spelling and you'll find your way there. I hope you found this episode helpful and inspiring. Please subscribe to the podcast so you never miss an episode. And if you're loving it, please give Did You Bring the Hummus a 5-star rating and leave a review. It's an easy way to keep supporting the show. Be sure to share these episodes with your friends. If you're finding something good here, they will too. Follow me on Facebook and Instagram at Did You Bring the Hummus, and visit my website, didyouBringTheHummus.com, for more information about me, updates on what I'm working on, new podcast episodes, and all things vegan. Tune in next time for my interview with Pragya Thakur, National Board Certified Health and Wellness Coach, who I am lucky enough to have also met in person. We connected via Ethos Farm, which you have heard about many times, including in my interview with the founder of Ethos, Dr. Ron Weiss. Pragya and I have a meaningful conversation around health and more. You don't want to miss it. Thanks for listening.